I never thought I'd be writing this. A few months ago, my life felt stable, even fulfilling. I was knee-deep in my work developing assistive technology for ALS patients, pouring my heart and soul into projects that could genuinely change lives. I had this vision of creating communication systems that would empower people to express themselves freely, based on the principle that connection required integrity. Little did I know, my own connection at home was crumbling right under my nose. Let me introduce you to the players in this story. I'm Jake, a 34-year-old tech developer with a passion for helping others. My wife, Lisa, is a 32-year-old marketing manager. We got married 3 years ago after a whirlwind romance that swept me off my feet. I loved her fiery spirit, her ambition, and the way we could talk about anything for hours. But lately, I noticed something was off. Lisa became evasive, often glued to her phone, and there were nights she stayed late at the office or had girls' nights that she never used to have. I brushed it off, convincing myself that maybe I was just overthinking things. Then came the day that sent my world into a tailspin. I had just returned home from a long day of testing new software for a speech-generating device. I was exhausted but excited to share my progress with Lisa. As I walked into our living room, I noticed her phone buzzing incessantly on the coffee table. It was strange. She never left it unattended. Curiosity got the better of me, and I picked it up. The screen lit up, revealing a string of messages from a contact named Megan. The messages were flirty and intimate, filled with inside jokes and plans to meet up. My heart sank. I felt the ground shift beneath me. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it was hard to ignore the sinking feeling in my gut. I decided to be discreet. I put the phone back down and waited for her to come home. When she walked in, I noticed she had a slight flush on her cheeks, as if she'd been caught in some kind of rush. I confronted her, trying to keep my voice steady, but the tremor in my hands betrayed my composure. "Who's Megan?" I asked, my heart racing. Her reaction was immediate, defensive and dismissive. "Oh, it's just a work friend. You know how it is, Jake. We joke around. You're reading too much into this." Her words dripped with the kind of confidence that made my stomach churn. I pressed her for more details, but she just kept insisting that it was nothing. As I stared into her eyes, I saw a flicker of something, fear perhaps, but it was quickly replaced by irritation. The confrontation spiraled into a full-blown argument. Lisa spewed excuses, claiming I was paranoid, that I needed to trust her more. Yet, how could I trust someone who was so readily dismissive of my feelings? The words I had been rehearsing in my mind turned into a jumbled mess of accusations and hurt. I wanted to scream, to get her to understand how her betrayal felt, but instead, I just stood there, feeling like my whole world was collapsing. After she left for the evening, claiming she needed space, I was left standing in the wreckage of my thoughts. I paced the apartment, replaying every moment, every conversation, every kiss we'd shared. I felt anger wash over me like a tidal wave. How could she do this to me? I had dedicated so much of my life to creating meaningful connections for others, while she was out there tearing apart the one we built. That night was a blur of confusion and pain. I went to bed alone, tears streaming down my face, wondering how I had let things get this far. I had to figure out what to do next, but first, I needed to confront my own feelings. Anger was easy, but sadness lingered like a heavy fog. I thought about how I had devoted myself to her, believing in a future that felt so secure just days ago. Now, everything felt uncertain and I didn't know how to process it all. I needed a plan, not just to confront her again, but to reclaim my life and my purpose. What was next? How do I respond to a betrayal so deep that it shook the very foundation of my being? The days that followed were a blur of emotional turmoil. The anger I felt morphed into a cold determination. I couldn't just sit back and take this lying down. I had to find out the truth about Lisa and confront her once and for all. If she had crossed that line, I needed tangible proof. My days were consumed with thoughts of her infidelity, and my nights were filled with restless sleep, plagued by visions of her with someone else. I started paying closer attention to the little things, her habits, her phone usage, the times she claimed to be working late. I found myself lurking around the apartment, waiting for her to get home so I could interrogate her for just a hint of the truth. It felt despicable, but I needed to know, was my wife really cheating or was I just losing my mind? One evening, I decided to take a leap of faith. I found a friend from college, Marcus, who worked in private investigations. I'd never thought I'd need to call on his expertise, but desperation made me do it. He was immediately sympathetic when I explained my situation. "I'll help you get to the bottom of this. Let me do some digging," he said. With his help, I could finally uncover the reality of what was happening behind my back. The next few days felt like a slow crawl. I was anxious, caught between hope and despair. I continued my routine at work, but the joy I once found in my projects was gone. My mind was constantly fixated on Lisa and her betrayal. I recalled happy moments, our laughter and our dreams. Now they felt like a cruel joke played by fate. Then came the day Marcus called me with news. "I've got something," he said. "Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th Street. You'll want to hear this." My heart raced as I made my way there. I knew I was about to confront the truth, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. When I arrived, I found Marcus sitting at a table looking serious. I did some surveillance and I witnessed her with a guy named Kevin. They were having dinner together, laughing and acting way too close for comfort. I caught a few photos too. I felt the room spin. Kevin, a guy I knew from a mutual friend's party. He was charming, outgoing, the kind of guy who could easily sweep someone off their feet. The thought of my wife sharing intimate moments with him made my stomach churn. "No, it can't be," I whispered, but deep down I already knew. The evidence was right there and I had to face it. Marcus handed me the photos, and as I looked at them, each image felt like a dagger to my heart. There they were, Lisa and Kevin, sitting side by side, her laughing at something he said. The way she leaned in, her hand brushing against his arm, it was like a punch to the gut. I felt the anger boil inside me, hot and consuming. When did this start? I asked myself, my mind racing. The next few days were an emotional whirlwind. I felt like I was living in a fog, going through the motions of life while my heart was shattered. I contemplated my next move. Should I confront her right away, or should I wait? Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to watch the facade of tranquility crumble as she was faced with the undeniable truth. But another part of me wanted to strategize, to make sure I approached this with clarity and strength. I chose the latter. I wanted to confront Lisa when I was in a place where I could keep my emotions in check, where I wouldn't just explode and lose control. I started to mentally prepare. I needed to gather my thoughts to pinpoint her lies. I wanted to make sure she understood the weight of her betrayal and the depth of my hurt. After days of gathering my thoughts, the evening arrived. Lisa came home, her usual smile plastered on her face. I felt a surge of rage at the sight of it. How could she smile when she was betraying everything we built together? I took a deep breath, steadied my nerves, and decided to lay it all out on the table. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. The smile faded instantly, replaced by a look of confusion. "What's wrong, Jake?" I could see her scanning my face, looking for clues, but I wouldn't give anything away. I was done playing games. "I know about Kevin, and I know you've been seeing him behind my back." Her face paled, and for a moment I thought she would deny it. But instead she just blinked, her mouth opening and closing as if she were searching for words. Finally she managed to stammer out, "Jake, it's not what it looks like," but I wasn't going to let her weasel out of this. I had spent enough time living in denial. The truth was here, laid bare before both of us, and I was ready to hear her excuses. I wanted to see how she would twist this, how she would try to make it all seem like it was somehow my fault. For every lie she told, I was ready with the reality that stood before us. I wouldn't let her manipulate my feelings into submission. I needed to hear her say it, to admit the truth, to own up to the betrayal she had inflicted on me. How could someone who promised to love and cherish me betray me so blatantly? "Tell me the truth, Lisa," I demanded, no longer holding back my emotions. "I deserve to hear it from you." Lisa's eyes darted around the room, her mind racing as if she were calculating her options. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to figure out how to spin this web of lies one more time. "Jake, please, it's complicated. she finally said, her voice shaky but firm. You don't understand. This isn't what you think. No, I think it's exactly what I think, I replied, my voice rising. You're cheating on me, Lisa. How can you stand there and try to downplay this? I felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on me like a heavy anchor, and I couldn't take it anymore. I needed her to face the consequences of her actions. Okay, fine, she snapped, her frustration boiling over. I've been seeing Kevin, but it's not like that. It's just been hard between us. You're always so busy with your work, and I felt lonely. Lonely. The word rolled off her tongue like an excuse, but it felt like a dagger. I had dedicated so much of my time to my career, sure, but I had done it for us, to build a life, to provide. How could she reduce my efforts to mere negligence? You think that justifies being with someone else. You think cheating is the answer to feeling lonely. My voice was low and steady, barely containing the hurt beneath it. I didn't plan for this to happen, she continued, her voice rising in desperation. It just, it just did. We connected on a level you and I haven't in a long time. Her words stung. I had poured my heart and soul into my work and into our relationship. So what? You just decided to throw away our 3 years together over a momentary connection. What about our vows, Lisa? My heart pounded with each accusation, but I needed her to understand the gravity of her betrayal. You don't get it, she shot back, tears forming in her eyes. You've been so focused on your projects, on helping those patients, that you've forgotten about me. I felt invisible. Invisible? How could she say that when I had sacrificed so much? You think I'm doing this for myself? I challenged, feeling the anger rise again. I work hard so we can have a future together. I thought you'd understand that. Lisa stepped back, her expression shifting to one of guilt, perhaps even realization. I'm sorry, Jake. I really am. I never wanted to hurt you. It just kind of happened. It just happened. I echoed bitterly. That's your excuse. You fell into bed with another man because you felt neglected. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel the tears welling up behind my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. I was furious, and I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down. Please, let's just talk about this, she pleaded. I love you, but I felt like I was losing you. I thought you were choosing your work over me. That stung. I felt a deep sense of betrayal wash over me, mixed with sadness and anger. You betrayed me with someone else, and now you want to talk about love. You think we can just brush this under the rug and pretend everything is fine. Her expression shifted again, the tears now streaming down her face. No, I don't want to pretend. I want to make it right. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Please, Jake, I'll do anything. I held her gaze, searching for sincerity, but all I saw were excuses wrapped in desperation. You say you'll do anything, but how can I trust you again? You've shattered everything we built together. The silence hung heavy between us. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, struggling to find a way out. It was clear this conversation wasn't going anywhere productive. I needed space to think, to process this monumental betrayal. Maybe I need some time alone, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. I could see her confusion morphing into fear. I can't deal with this right now. I think it's best if we take a step back. Jake, please don't do this. We can fix this, she cried, her voice trembling with panic. But her pleas felt like hollow echoes against the weight of reality. I turned away from her, feeling my heart ache. I walked out of the living room, leaving her behind, and stepped out onto the balcony. The night was cool, and I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. I felt like everything I knew had been turned upside down. I wanted to shout, to scream, to let out the hurt that had been bottled up inside, but I couldn't. I had to keep it together. I spent the night pacing the balcony, lost in thought. I had to decide what was next. Did I want to salvage this marriage, or was it time to cut my losses? Could I ever truly trust her again? My heart was in turmoil, teetering between love and betrayal, all while I was meant to be the rock for patients who relied on me for hope and communication. Now I found myself unable to piece together my own thoughts. The next day passed in a daze. I went to work, but my mind was consumed by the previous night's confrontation. I replayed every word, every moment, trying to understand how it could have come to this. I felt like I was walking through fog, a mixture of anger, sadness, and confusion enveloping me. When I got home, there was an uneasy silence in the air. Lisa was there waiting, but I wasn't ready to engage with her. I needed to think, to figure out what I wanted. I wanted to be strong, but the thought of being vulnerable again felt like a risk I wasn't prepared to take. Jake. She started, but I held up a hand to silence her. I couldn't hear any more excuses. Give me some time, I responded, my voice steady but lacking warmth. I needed to reclaim my power, to gather my thoughts before I made any decisions about our future. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and I needed to decide whether to leap or take a step back. As the days passed, I found myself in a constant battle with my emotions. I was torn between the love I still felt for Lisa and the hurt she had inflicted on me. I was at a crossroads, and it was time to make a choice that would define my future. What would I do? How would I heal from this? I knew I had to figure it out soon, but for now, I just needed time to process everything. The weeks that followed were excruciatingly slow. I had agreed to give Lisa some space, but the silence in our apartment was deafening. Each day felt like a balancing act between my professional responsibilities and the emotional earthquake that had shattered my personal life. I poured myself into my work, but the passion I once had felt like an ember struggling to ignite. I went through the motions at the office, working on my projects to develop technology that would help ALS patients communicate more effectively. I found solace in the fact that my work could make a difference in the lives of others, but every time I saw a patient struggle to express themselves, I was reminded of my own struggle, my inability to communicate with the one person I thought I knew inside and out. It was a painful juxtaposition, and the anger inside me began to fester. During this time, I leaned on Marcus more than I anticipated. I needed someone to talk to help me navigate this emotional minefield. He offered support and advice, encouraging me to be honest with myself about my feelings and what I wanted moving forward. Jake, you deserve to be treated with respect and love, he said one night over drinks. Don't lose sight of your worth because of her mistakes. Those words resonated with me. I started to reflect on the past few years and questioned whether I had been too accommodating, too willing to overlook the signs. The more I thought, the more I realized that my marriage had become a delicate balance, one that I had been managing alone while Lisa's attention drifted elsewhere. One evening, I found myself sitting on the couch, staring at the stack of bills and reminders around me. I couldn't ignore the tension any longer. It was time to confront Lisa again, but this time with a different approach. I needed clarity about my feelings and to communicate what I had been processing over the past weeks. When Lisa walked in that night, I saw the familiar mix of uncertainty and hope in her eyes. It twisted my heart to see her that way, but I had to be firm. We need to talk, I said, feeling a mix of dread and determination. Jake, I know I've hurt you, she started, her voice trembling, but I want to fix this. I've been thinking a lot. I miss us. Miss us. I repeated, disbelief washing over me. What about when you were with Kevin? Did you miss us then? Her expression hardened and I could see her frustration bubbling beneath the surface. That was a mistake, Jake. I made a choice in a moment of weakness. I know I hurt you, but can't we work through this? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. You keep saying that, but it feels like you're just trying to save face. You were with him. You chose to betray me. It's not something that's easily brushed aside, I replied, my voice steady but laced with pain. I know, she said, her voice breaking, but I want to show you I can be better. I'll do anything to prove it to you. Anything, I echoed, searching her eyes for sincerity. How can I trust you again? You shattered my confidence and our connection with your betrayal. I don't know if I can forgive you. Tears streamed down her face as she took a step closer, reaching for me, but I held my ground. I need to think about this, Lisa. I need to weigh my options. You've left me with some hard choices to make. Jake, please, she whispered, desperation etched on her face. I need to be clear about what I want, I said firmly. This isn't just about you saying sorry. I need to know that you understand the depth of what you've done. I need time to figure out if I can move past this. The silence that followed was thick with unresolved tension. I could see the hurt in her eyes, but I also felt my own heart breaking at the realization that this was the reality of our marriage now. I would have to confront the damage and decide whether I could pick up the pieces. After that conversation, I spent my days reflecting. I began writing down my feelings, processing my anger and confusion. I needed to lay it all out, what I had experienced, how I felt, and what I wanted for my future. It became a cathartic exercise, and I found clarity in the chaos. As I wrote, I realized something significant. I had dedicated so much of my life to nurturing connections for others, yet I had neglected my own needs. The juxtaposition was stark, and I felt empowered as I wrote about my desires and boundaries. It became clear that I needed to put myself first. I also considered the implications of working on our marriage. Could I truly forgive Lisa? Did I want to? Part of me wanted to fight for what we had, to believe that love could overcome this betrayal. Yet another part of me understood that a relationship built on lies needed a solid foundation to rebuild, and that foundation felt irreparably cracked. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to reach out to my parents. They had always been my sounding board, and I needed their perspective. Over dinner, I shared my heartache and confusion, recounting everything that had happened. Their reactions were mixed, empathy for my pain, but also reminders of the sanctity of marriage. "Jake, life is complicated," my father said, his voice steady. "You need to consider what makes you happy, but also what you're willing to forgive. It's okay to be angry, but you have to be true to yourself." Their advice weighed heavily on me, and as the evening wore on, I began to consider the direction I wanted to take. I realized that I couldn't rush into a decision without fully processing everything. I needed to find a way to reclaim my power and establish a new narrative for my life, one that didn't revolve around betrayal but rather healing and growth. When I returned home that night, I felt a sense of resolve. Regardless of what I decided, I would not allow this betrayal to define me. I was going to take control, not just of my marriage but of my life. The following days were filled with introspection, and I began to formulate a plan. I would confront Lisa again, but this time I would lay out what I needed to move forward: boundaries, honesty, and a commitment to rebuilding our trust from the ground up. But first, I had to give myself room to breathe, to heal, and to understand what I truly wanted. And that's when I realized I was ready to reclaim my life. I would face my fears, my pain, and my anger, and I would not allow myself to be a victim of someone else's choices. It was time to turn the page and take the next step in my journey, whatever that may be. The process wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to emerge stronger, regardless of the outcome. I owed it to myself and to those I worked tirelessly to help every day. With each passing day, I felt a growing sense of clarity, mixed with a bittersweet acknowledgement of the journey ahead. I realized that stepping into this next phase meant confronting Lisa one last time, not just for her benefit, but for my own. I needed to articulate my thoughts and feelings clearly, to create a space where we could either rebuild or decide to part ways amicably. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast a warm glow through our apartment, I called Lisa into the living room. The air felt thick with unspoken words, and I could see the anxiety etched on her face. She knew we were at a crossroads, and the tension was palpable. "Jake," she began, but I raised my hand, wanting to take control of the conversation. I didn't want her to soften my resolve with her pleas just yet. "Lisa, I need you to listen. I've spent a lot of time reflecting on everything that's happened. I've read and written about my feelings, and I want to share where I'm at." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "You hurt me deeply, and I'm not sure if I can move past it. Trust, once broken, is incredibly hard to rebuild." Her eyes widened, and I could see the regret flicker across her face, but I pressed on. "You said you loved me, but your actions told a different story. I need to understand why you made those choices and if you truly grasp the impact they've had on me." "You have no idea how much I regret it, Jake. It was a mistake," she replied, her voice trembling. "I was lonely and I made a terrible choice, but I want to make things right. I'll do whatever it takes." "Making things right isn't just about saying sorry," I shot back. "It's about understanding what led you to that point and owning the consequences of your actions. I need to know that you're committed to honesty moving forward." "I am, I swear," she insisted, desperation creeping into her voice. "I won't ever hurt you like that again. I promise. Just give me a chance to prove it." I nodded slowly, wrestling with my emotions. I appreciate your willingness to change, but I need time to process everything. I can't just jump back into this without knowing we're both committed to healing. You need to understand that I can't put myself in a position where I risk being hurt again. The silence that followed was heavy. It felt like we were teetering on the edge of a precipice, waiting to see whether we would fall or find solid ground. "What do you want, Jake?" she asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you want to end this?" "I haven't decided yet," I replied honestly. "But I need to be clear about what I expect if we're going to move forward. I deserve transparency, and you need to demonstrate that you're serious about making amends." "Tell me what you need," she said earnestly. "I'll do anything to show you that I'm committed to fixing this." I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "First, I need you to cut off all contact with Kevin. No more text messages, no more excuses. If we're going to rebuild, I need to know that you're fully invested in our relationship." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I will. I won't contact him again, I promise." "Second, we need to establish open communication. I want us to have weekly check-ins where we can discuss our feelings. I need to know I can express my concerns without fear of it leading to defensiveness or anger." Of course, she agreed, her eyes filled with sincerity. "I want to work on this together. Lastly, I need some reassurance that you're willing to put in the effort. I want to see you actively working on personal growth, whether that means therapy or something else. This isn't just about fixing our marriage, it's about you becoming the partner I thought you were." Lisa looked at me, and I could see the weight of my words sinking in. "I will do that, Jake. I promise I'll get help. I don't want to lose you." I felt a mix of hope and skepticism. "I appreciate your willingness, but please understand that this will take time. I'm not making any promises about our future just yet. I need to see actions that align with your words." "Okay," she replied softly, nodding. "I understand. I'll do everything I can to show you I mean it." As we sat in silence for a moment, I realized that this conversation was just the beginning. I wasn't naive enough to think that everything would be fixed overnight, but I had set the groundwork for us to either rebuild trust or move toward closure. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was taking control of my life again. In the days that followed, I felt a strange blend of hope and trepidation. I'd set clear expectations, and now it was up to Lisa to prove her commitment. I found solace in my work, focusing on my projects and the patients who inspired me to push forward. I channeled my energy into developing innovative communication systems, pouring my heart into technology that could empower others facing their own struggles. As I watched my projects grow, I realized that I was also growing, learning to advocate for myself, to demand the respect and honesty I deserved in my personal life. I was building a new foundation, one that didn't solely rely on the past but looked forward to a future where I prioritized my own well-being. Lisa kept her word. She cut ties with Kevin and committed to therapy. There were moments of doubt and fear, but I began to see glimpses of the person I once loved, the woman I had fallen for. Slowly but surely, she started to chip away at the walls I had built around my heart. But I remained guarded. I knew that rebuilding trust wasn't a linear process. There would be setbacks and challenges along the way, but I was determined not to let hurt define me. It was about finding balance between hope and skepticism, love and self-preservation. One evening, as I sat in our living room, I reflected on how far we had come since that fateful confrontation. I could see the small changes, the willingness to communicate, the open conversations about our fears, and the commitment to honesty that was slowly but surely being restored. Yet deep down, I understood that healing was not just about us. It was about me reclaiming my sense of self, my worth, and my ability to trust again. I had to remind myself that while I was forging a path toward healing with Lisa, I also had a responsibility to nurture my own growth and protect my heart. In the end, no matter what happened with us, I was learning that resilience was not just about bouncing back from betrayal. It was about standing firm in my convictions and embracing the possibility of a brighter future, whether that future was with Lisa or on my own. The journey was far from over, but I was ready to face whatever came next with newfound strength and clarity. Time passed like a river, flowing steadily forward, and I found myself caught in the current of healing. The weeks turned into months, and while the path was rocky and unpredictable, I felt a renewed sense of purpose and resilience. Lisa and I were navigating the murky waters of our relationship with a mix of cautious optimism and lingering apprehension. As we continued our weekly check-ins, I noticed a subtle shift in our dynamic. Lisa was actively working on herself, seeking therapy and engaging in open discussions about her feelings and our relationship. She shared her vulnerabilities, her fears, and the mistakes she had made, which was a refreshing change from the defensiveness I had encountered before. It felt like a small victory for us both. One particular evening, as we sat together on the couch, I sensed that something significant had shifted. Lisa turned to me, her expression earnest. "Jake, I've been reflecting on everything. I know I hurt you, and I can't take that back, but I want you to know how committed I am to rebuilding your trust. I'm doing this not just for us, but for myself." Her words struck a chord within me. I felt the heaviness in my chest begin to lift, replaced by a glimmer of hope. "I appreciate that, Lisa. I really do," I replied, my voice steady. "But I need to see that commitment in action." "I understand," she responded, her eyes earnest. "It's not just about saying the right things anymore. I want to show you that I can be the partner you deserve." We spent the evening talking about our dreams, our goals, and the kind of future we envisioned together. It was refreshing to engage in that level of vulnerability, to articulate our aspirations without the weight of betrayal hanging over us. I felt a connection rekindling, albeit slowly, as we navigated this new chapter together. Yet, in the back of my mind, doubts lingered. I had been hurt, and while I wanted to believe in the possibility of a rebuilt relationship, I also knew that it would take time and consistency. I had to keep reminding myself that healing was a journey, not a destination. As summer approached, I began to sense a shift in my own perspective. I had learned the importance of self-care and self-advocacy through this tumultuous experience. I started attending my own therapy sessions, focusing on my emotional well-being and understanding how to rebuild my life with or without Lisa. It was empowering to process my feelings with a professional, and I gained invaluable insight into my own needs and boundaries. On one particular evening, after a long day at work, I returned home to find Lisa waiting for me, her face lit with excitement. "Jake, I have something to show you," she exclaimed, her energy infectious. "What is it?" I asked, intrigued. She led me to our living room, where she had set up a small presentation of sorts. On the wall, she had pinned up a few frames, showing sketches and designs for a new assistive technology project she had started working on. "I want to help you with your work," she said, her eyes sparkling. "I've been researching how we can make communication devices more accessible for patients. I want to contribute." I felt a surge of warmth in my chest. "This is incredible, Lisa. I can't believe you've taken the initiative like this. I want to be involved in something that matters to you," she said earnestly. "When I saw how dedicated you are to helping others, it inspired me to find my own way to contribute." Her desire to support my work felt like a turning point. It was more than just a gesture. It was a representation of her commitment to our relationship and her willingness to be an active partner. It was the kind of support I had longed for, and for the first time in a while, I felt hope blooming again. As summer unfolded, we spent more time together, rekindling our love for each other through shared experiences. We took long walks, ventured into new hobbies, and focused on rebuilding our connection. Lisa made a concerted effort to be transparent and communicative, and I found myself slowly letting down my defenses. There were still tough moments, of course. Occasionally, doubts would creep in, and I would find myself replaying the past, but I was learning how to manage those feelings. I began to understand that healing was not about erasing the pain, but rather integrating it into my life and using it as a compass to navigate the future. One evening, as we sat watching the sunset from our balcony, I turned to Lisa, feeling a swell of gratitude wash over me. I know we still have a long way to go, but I'm proud of the progress we've made, I said softly. Me too, she replied, her voice sincere. I know I broke your trust, but every day I'm grateful for the chance to rebuild it with you. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace settle within me. I still had questions and concerns about our future, but at that moment I realized something vital. I was no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was an active participant in my healing journey. I had learned valuable lessons through this experience about trust, commitment, and the importance of self-worth. My work with ALS patients had continued to inspire me, reminding me that communication, connection, and integrity are fundamental to human experience. I was determined to carry these lessons with me, whether I continued this journey with Lisa or ventured down a different path. I knew that the road ahead would not, without its challenges, but for the first time in a long while I felt ready to face them head-on. I had reclaimed my voice, my power, and my agency, and with that I was prepared to embrace whatever the future held. Whether it meant rebuilding my marriage or forging a new path, I was finally ready to live life on my own terms. In that moment, with the fading light casting a warm glow over us, I felt a flicker of hope, a hope that maybe, just maybe, we could create something beautiful together again.